Oh, Vikings, let's win this game.
The Vikings had an injury scare involving one of their newest defensive additions. But that was only the beginning of an action-packed day at training camp. A forgotten pass catcher is suddenly pushing his way into the battle for a roster spot. Kevin O'Connell has responded to the growing criticism surrounding J.J. McCarthy. And now, the Vikings are already being linked to a Tampa Bay Buccaneers veteran. Something is definitely starting to heat up in Minnesota. Minnesota received a brief scare at practice when veteran cornerback James Pierre came up limping after making one of the biggest defensive plays of the day. Pierre intercepted Kyler Murray on a deep pass intended for Jordan Addison. But immediately after the play, reporters noticed that something did not look right. According to Judd Zulgad, Pierre remained on the field for a short time, but did not participate during the rest of practice. The good news is that it did not initially appear to be a serious injury. Zulgad suggested that it may have been nothing more than a cramp, and no major injury has been reported. Still, this is exactly the kind of moment that makes Vikings fans hold their breath. Minnesota signed Pierre earlier this offseason to a 2-year contract worth as much as $8.5 million, because this cornerback room desperately needed another proven option. Byron Murphy Jr. and Isaiah Rodgers Sr. give the Vikings 2 established starters, but the depth behind them remains one of the biggest questions on the entire roster. Minnesota did select Charles Demings in the 5th round of the 2026 NFL Draft, and the young corner out of Stephen F. Austin is expected to compete for the CB4 position. However, relying heavily on a 5th-round rookie and several former undrafted free agents would be a dangerous situation if Pierre were forced to miss significant time. That is why the Vikings need this scare to remain exactly that, a scare and nothing more. Losing Pierre before the season even begins would place enormous pressure on Demings and the other young corners. There was another important detail hidden inside this play. Pierre did not intercept a backup quarterback during some meaningless rep. He read Kyler Murray, tracked a deep ball intended for one of Minnesota's most dangerous receivers, and made the play. That is the type of moment that can earn a veteran trust inside a new defense. It was also a reminder that every interception, completion, and missed opportunity will be considered before the Vikings make their final quarterback decision. J.J. McCarthy understands that reality. When asked how the competition could bring out the best in him, McCarthy gave a mature answer. He explained that elite players compete against themselves, evaluate their performance every day, and focus on what they can control. McCarthy also revealed that O'Connell has emphasized taking the completions available, making smart decisions, and simply doing his job. When asked directly whether this is truly a fair competition, McCarthy did not hesitate. He said it was 100%. That answer matters because McCarthy does not sound like a player who believes the decision has already been made. He sounds determined to keep fighting for the job, regardless of what the outside world expects. Quick message: subscribe to the channel. It's free and goes a long way toward helping this community grow. While the quarterbacks continue receiving most of the attention, one of the most encouraging developments at camp is coming from a player many fans have barely had an opportunity to see. Tight end Gavin Bartholomew is finally healthy, finally practicing, and apparently beginning to turn some heads. Bartholomew entered the NFL as a 6th-round selection out of Pitt last year, but a back injury erased his entire rookie season. He never received the opportunity to build momentum, develop chemistry with the quarterbacks, or prove that he belonged on the active roster. For a late-round draft pick, losing an entire season can be devastating. The league moves quickly, new players arrive every year, and teams rarely wait forever for someone to develop. That is why this training camp is so important for Bartholomew. T.J. Hawkinson and Josh Oliver are firmly established as Minnesota's top 2 tight ends, which leaves Bartholomew competing with Benjamin Urosek for what will likely be the TE3 position. Urosek joined the Vikings as an undrafted free agent out of Georgia in 2025, so neither player has enough status to feel comfortable. Every rep matters, and on Wednesday, Bartholomew made his reps count. Will Ragatz reported that the young tight end caught multiple passes from McCarthy, while Alec Lewis noted that Bartholomew made 2 impressive receptions over the middle and moved extremely well. That second part may be even more important than the catches. After a back injury cost him an entire year, Seeing Bartholomew move comfortably and attack the middle of the field is an encouraging sign. Now, the challenge is consistency. One strong practice can get a player mentioned by reporters, but several strong practices can earn him a roster spot. Bartholomew must show that he can contribute as a receiver, hold up as a blocker, and help on special teams. The Vikings are not going to keep a third tight end simply because he was drafted. He will have to prove that he offers more value than Jurosek and any other player fighting for one of those final offensive roster spots. If Bartholomew continues creating a reliable target over the middle, McCarthy may begin looking for him more frequently. Even if Bartholomew does not make the initial 53-man roster, Minnesota would probably want him back on the practice squad. The problem is that placing him there would expose him to the rest of the league. Another team could sign him directly to its active roster, especially if he performs well during the preseason. That means the Vikings may eventually face a difficult decision: keep an unproven but talented tight end on the roster, or risk losing him before they discover what he could become. Bartholomew lost his rookie season through no fault of his own, but he is finally getting his opportunity. Based on what reporters saw Wednesday, he is not planning to let it disappear quietly. Now we need to talk about a quarterback who is not even on the Vikings roster, because Minnesota has already been mentioned as a possible future destination for Baker Mayfield. ESPN reported that Mayfield is expected to play out the final year of his contract with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, potentially allowing him to enter unrestricted free agency next offseason. That immediately opened the door to speculation about which teams could pursue him, and the Vikings were identified as one possible landing spot. This is not a report that Minnesota is currently negotiating with Mayfield or has already decided to move on from McCarthy or Murray. It is a projection based on what could happen if Minnesota finishes the 2026 season without finding its long-term answer at quarterback. Murray is playing on a one-year prove-it deal, while McCarthy is trying to recover from 2 seasons disrupted by injuries, inconsistency, and lost development time. If one of them takes control of the offense and leads Minnesota forward, the Mayfield conversation probably disappears. If both struggle, new general manager Nolan Teasley could be forced to explore another solution. Austin Bundy suggested that Mayfield could receive at least a 2-year contract and serve as both a challenger to McCarthy and a transition quarterback while Minnesota plans its future. That scenario would place the Vikings right back where they are today, with another veteran arriving to compete with McCarthy, while the organization continues searching for clarity. He passed for 3,693 yards and 26 touchdowns last season, with 11 interceptions. His career resurgence in Tampa Bay showed that he can operate a productive offense when surrounded by the right coaching and personnel. Kevin O'Connell's system would make Minnesota an intriguing fit, but the 2026 season has not even started, and McCarthy still has the opportunity to change the entire direction of this conversation. Adam Schefter recently made it clear that he is not prepared to give up on the young quarterback. While many analysts expect Murray to win the job, Schefter believes McCarthy will be heard from again at some point this season. Last year did not provide enough evidence to declare McCarthy a success or permanently label him a failure. He passed for 1,632 yards with 11 touchdowns and 12 interceptions, showing flashes of legitimate talent, but also committing too many costly mistakes. The ability is there, but the consistency is not. Mayfield's name entering the conversation should be viewed as a warning rather than a prediction. If neither McCarthy nor Murray claims the job in 2026, Minnesota will continue searching through the draft, free agency, and every other available option. Kevin O'Connell is also tired of hearing that the Vikings never gave J.J. McCarthy a fair opportunity. During an appearance on Good Morning Football, Kyle Brandt directly asked O'Connell about the criticism that Minnesota panicked and brought in Kyler Murray before allowing McCarthy enough time to establish himself as the franchise quarterback. O'Connell pushed back against that idea. His response focused on patience, development, and the difficult balance between protecting a young quarterback's future and trying to win games immediately. O'Connell emphasized that McCarthy remains a very young player with significant talent and upside. He also acknowledged that the Vikings cannot erase the development time McCarthy lost during his first 2 seasons. McCarthy missed his entire rookie campaign because of a knee injury. Then, during his second season, multiple health problems, forced him to miss 7 more games. That is an enormous amount of time for any young quarterback to lose, especially one trying to adjust to the speed and complexity of the NFL. O'Connell's argument is essentially that those injuries were nobody's fault, but the organization still has a responsibility to react to them. The Vikings cannot simply assume McCarthy will remain healthy and suddenly become the quarterback they envisioned when they selected him 10th overall in 2024. They also cannot allow his development to stop because the first 2 years did not go according to plan. That explains why Minnesota surrounded him with 2 veteran quarterbacks. Murray is a former #1 overall selection and a 2-time Pro Bowler. Carson Wentz already knows O'Connell's offense after starting 5 games for Minnesota last season, going 2-3 before a shoulder injury ended his year. From McCarthy's perspective, that room creates enormous pressure. From the Vikings' perspective, it protects the season. O'Connell made it clear that his job is to do what he believes gives Minnesota the best chance to win football games. And that may not always align perfectly with what is best for McCarthy's individual development. Dan Graziano made an important point when he noted that Arizona would not be paying Murray $36 million to play somewhere else if he were a perfect answer. Murray has more experience than McCarthy, but he does not arrive without concerns. That is why this competition cannot be treated as a ceremonial battle with a predetermined winner. If McCarthy is clearly better during camp and the preseason, Minnesota must be willing to start him. At the same time, the young quarterback cannot expect the organization to hand him the job because of his draft position. He has to earn it through smart decisions, accuracy, command of the offense, and availability. Wentz also gives O'Connell an experienced alternative if injuries or inconsistent play affect the 2 leading candidates. So, did the Vikings fail to give McCarthy a fair chance? I don't believe that is the complete story. He has been incredibly unlucky, and the injuries clearly interrupted his opportunity. But Minnesota cannot pause an entire franchise while waiting to see whether everything eventually comes together. The fairest thing the Vikings can do now is create a legitimate competition, judge every quarterback by the same standard, and allow the best player to win. O'Connell says that is what is happening. McCarthy says it is 100% fair. Now the performance on the field has to prove them right. This quarterback battle is becoming the defining story of Vikings training camp, but it is not the only competition that matters. Minnesota needs James Pierre healthy because the cornerback room cannot afford to lose another proven contributor. Gavin Bartholomew is fighting to revive a career that never had the chance to begin. McCarthy is fighting to prove that his opportunity has not already passed him by, while Murray is trying to show that he can become more than a 1-year solution. And hovering over everything is the possibility that if neither quarterback succeeds, the Vikings could be looking for another answer next offseason. Let me know whether you believe McCarthy is truly receiving a fair chance, and tell me if Baker Mayfield would ever make sense in Minnesota. If you enjoyed the video, subscribe to the channel and turn on your notifications so you never miss the latest Vikings news. Until next time, stay tuned. Skol Vikings, let's go.